Okay, let's start with the formal lecture about the cells, the basic unit of life. We know as a basic biology student that the life which we know at a molecular level is all about the chemical reactions. So it's all about the chemical reactions at the molecular level. But in biology, there is a comparatively higher order of life exists, and that higher order of life is called as the cell, or more accurately, cells are considered as the basic unit of life, as a basic structural. Cells are considered as a basic unit of life, a structural unit of life, as well as a functional unit of life. So if I try to break down life into smaller components and smaller component and smaller component and smaller component, the most fundamental component of life, which we will get at the end of all possible divisions, is called as the cell. And cell is responsible for the structure, and it is a structural and functional unit of life. When I say structural unit of life, that means every living thing is made up of cells. That means every living thing is made up of cells by structure. When we speak like it's a functional unit of life, that means that every function of the living thing has its origin within the cells. So, for example, humans. This is like the humans. Humans like are made up of cells. So humans are made up of cells, trillions of cells. Humans are the first thing. Every part of the human being is made up of cell. That's the first understanding. That's easier comparatively. It is called structural unit of life. No matter it's human, no matter it's monkey, no matter it's a plant or any other version of life, it's made up of cells. The first thing, easier to understand. The other is functional unit. What that mean, functional unit? Functional unit means humans, they eat, they take food because cells need food. Human consumes food to produce energy, to carry out all the functions of life. Cells consumes food to produce energy, to execute all the things going on within the cells. Humans excrete waste products because cells excrete waste product. Humans consumes oxygen, releases carbon dioxide gas, what we call as respiration, because cells consumes oxygen and releases carbon dioxide gas. So whatever the things and functions we can see at an organism level is executed at a cellular level as well. And that is why it is also called as not only the structural unit but also the functional unit of life. The characteristics of life has its origin within the cells. And there are like a fundamental understanding we have that every living thing, no matter it's a unicellular or it's a multicellular, no matter it's made up of one cell or it is made up of many cells, no matter it is made up of prokaryotic cells or no matter it is made up of eukaryotic cells, every living form is made up of cells. Cells are like doing all the functions of life. They are of different types, different shapes. I think this is an example of a neuronal cell. It's a cell body, and this is like the threads which helps the neurons to communicate with each other. And this is another type of cell. Here you can see more or less like a red blood cell. So cells looks different from each other. They have different structures. because they are doing different things. They're executing different functions. The discovery of cell is associated with the discovery of the microscope. Because microscope enhance the capacity, it actually increased the capacity of our vision. The Robert Hooke discovered the cells for the very first time when he was observing a very small slice of cork cells. And he found that the cells, a very small slice of the cork is actually visible like this, made up of small, simple, repeating structures. And he referred those small, simple, repeating chambers and structures as cells. Cells are quite interesting in terms of words. If you see the dictionary and if you go to Google and try to find how many things are attributed as cells, you came to know many. In physics, in biology, in other science, computer sciences as well. So cell, like in life sciences, is a cell, but we are studying. In physics, it's like a battery, like a cell, and also like a chamber. So you will see it's quite interesting as a word, cells. So a microscope enhanced our capacity to see that the cork cells are made up of small chambers. And those chambers are then referred as cells. Later we came to know that it's not about the cork cells only, it's not about the plant cells only. Every living thing is made up of a similar sort of small chambers and repeating units. Like every other organism, every other living thing is made up of cells. Whether you get that organism from the pond water, you get that organism like from anywhere, whether the organism is small or the organism is large, or whether the organism is made up of one cell or it is made up of large number of cells. Every life form is made up of these simple repeating units. Euglena is an example of one cell organism. It's present in the pond water, and it belongs to a category called protists. This is not the place where we are studying the classification, but just for your understanding, remember, one cell organisms are grouped in a category called protista, or they are called as protists. So Euglena belong to it. Whether the life is like any other form, like microcystis or Spirogyra. Spirogyra is more famous, you might remember. It's called as algae. It's like an algae. जो ग्रीन पॉन्ड्स होती हैं, जो लेक्स होती हैं, उसमें जो सबज सबज किस्म की घास आपको नजर आती है पानी में, the green grass like thing present in the water and ponds, that is called as the algae or the Spirogyra. Okay, so there are many people who have contributed in our understanding about the cells. Like Schleiden, one person, and the other is Schwann. These two people have contributed our knowledge about plants tissues and as well as in animal tissues. But amazingly, they came to know whether the organism is plant or the organism is like animal. They are made up of cells, and the cells, they look different depending on the nature of the work the cell is doing. But at the end of the day, everything is made up of cells, no matter they're plants or they're animals. So it gives people so many reasons to believe that the life has a common origin. I mean, whether you are a plant or you are an animal, the fabric of life is same. The logic, structures, and the theme of life is almost same. So it gives people believe a lot of reasons to believe that it started in the same way, no matter the life is in the form of animals or in the form of plants. So because of the work of different people, researchers and scientists, we came to know about some fundamental conclusions about life and about cells. These three important points are called as cell theory. Originally, there were 2 points, but later on, another point was added, and together it is called as the cell theory. For basic biology student, it's like a must-have. It's like a concept of life. So the first thing, all organisms consist of 1 or more cells. Means everything is made, every life form is made up of cells. The second point is that cell is the basic unit of structure as well as the function of all organisms. The function is not written here, but you can guess. If something is made up of the same things, that is also responsible for the function as well. Cells are the basic unit of structure of all organisms. And in 1858, one more point was added. This new cells arises from the pre-existing cells. The cells arises from the pre-existing one. Every cells came from the pre-existing cells. So you might be wondering, if it pehla cell kahan se aaya? That's a different debate. But for the cell theory, the cells appear or came to existence from the pre-existing cells. So that is how life continues, and that is how life works. Different forms and versions of cells are out, life forms are out there. If an organism is made up of 1 cell, that is called as unicellular. If an organism is made up of large number of cells, it is called as multicellular. Bacteria is made up of like 1 cell. It's a unicellular. Euglena is made up of 1 cell, and that is called as unicellular. Humans are made up of large number of cells, and it is called as multicellular. Any organism and life form which you are able to see with your own eyes, they're all multicellular. Another category of life based on the nature of cells. This is based on number of cells. So life can be classified based on number of cells, and life can be classified based on type of cell. Based on type of cells. If an organism is made up of prokaryotic cell, that organism is called as prokaryote. If an organism is made up of eukaryotic cell, that organism is called as eukaryote. A prokaryotic cell is primitive, it's simpler. A eukaryotic cell is advanced, and it's complicated as compared to the prokaryotic cells. And a very fundamental difference between the 2 cells is that the prokaryotic cells, they don't have any defined nucleus. They don't have any defined nucleus. So that is used as a basic definition of the difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic. A defined nucleus is present in the eukaryotic cells, and no defined nucleus is present in the prokaryotic cells. That is used as a basic difference. But I told you, based on the membranes, the actual difference came because of the presence and absence of the membranes. No membranous bounded structures are present in the prokaryotic cells. Membranous bounded structures are present, many membranous bounded structures are present in eukaryotics. And we will learn this thing in detail in the upcoming slide. These two are the comparison of the cells, prokaryote and eukaryote. Remember, prokaryote means organism. Those organisms which are made up of prokaryotic cells. Eukaryote means the organism. Those organisms which are made up of eukaryotic cells. And look at the structure of the cells. A prokaryotic cell is quite simpler. It is made up of a boundary, an outer boundary, and then the genetic material. This is the genetic material. The genetic material is made up of nucleic acids. The genetic material is made up of nucleic acids. But there is no defined chamber. The genetic material is not confined to one place. In case of eukaryotic cells, they have an outermost boundary, and you can see lots of interesting small structures are out there that makes the eukaryotic cell quite complicated. The presence of defined boundary, actually this boundary encloses the genetic material. Remember, this genetic material and this genetic material is same. It is called as DNA, the deoxyribonucleic acid. But here, the genetic material is suspended within the cytoplasm. But in case of eukaryotic cells, the genetic material is enclosed within the chamber called as the nucleus. Everything which is present between the membrane and the nucleus is called as cytoplasm. The membrane is also called as plasma membrane. And everything between the plasma membrane and the nucleus is called as the cytoplasm. And all these organelles, the wonderful organelles, they are present in the cytoplasm. We will study them one by one. So in totality, if we want to compare the prokaryotes with the eukaryotes, or compare the prokaryotic cell with the eukaryotic cell, the prokaryotic cells are primitive, simpler. The eukaryotic cells are advanced and complicated. The prokaryotic cells, they don't have any defined nucleus, and the eukaryotic cells, they have the defined nucleus. And if you're able to absorb these two things comfortably, you can deduce logically that the organisms which are made up of prokaryotic cells or the prokaryotes, they will going to be simpler organisms. And the organisms which are made up of eukaryotic cells, they might be complicated or advanced. That is why bacteria is simpler and humans are complicated and advanced organisms. And you should be able to understand these terms as well. When somebody speaks that bacteria is an example of a unicellular prokaryote, as a basic biology student, you should be able to decipher that line now. Bacteria is a unicellular prokaryote. That means it is made up of one cell, and that one cell is prokaryotic cell. An example of a bacteria is Escherichia and Salmonella. A protist is a unicellular eukaryote. What that mean? That means a protist is a category, group of organisms. They are unicellular, they are made up of one cell. And number two, that one cell is a eukaryotic cell. It also means that the protists, they are supposed to be more advanced and complicated as compared to the bacteria. How about an example is Paramecium and amoeba. How about humans? How you can refer humans? If bacteria is unicellular prokaryote, the protists will be unicellular eukaryotes. How about humans? Fill in the blanks. Humans
multicellular eukaryotes. Multicellular eukaryotes.
Shabash, they are multicellular eukaryotes.
सर जितनी भी लिविंग थिंग है वो यूकैरियोट्स में आती है ना?
हाँ, जो हम देख सकते हैं, जो आमतौर पर हम देख सकते हैं।
यस सर, जो हम देख सकते हैं, बिल्कुल ऐसे
देख सकते हैं, एग्जैक्टली।
जो बड़ी है, क्योंकि प्रोकैरियोटिक सिस्टम इतना एडवांस या कॉम्प्लिकेटेड नहीं है कि वो मल्टी सेलुलर बड़े ऑर्गेनिज्म बना सकता। सो दैट इज व्हाई वो सब छोटे हैं, लेकिन वो छोटे बड़े जबरदस्त हैं। मतलब आई एम इन लव विद बैक्टीरिया because bacteria survived over the period of like thousands or millions of years. But bacteria have failed to become like a big organism. बिकॉज उसमें मौजूद स्ट्रक्चर जितने एडवांस नहीं है कि वो बिग ऑर्गेनिज्म की कॉम्प्लिकेशंस को एब्जॉर्ब कर सके. But as a small cell, as a small organism, it survived. It existed, and for the period of like millions of years. Amazing. जहां पर जिंदगी हो सकती है वहां बैक्टीरिया है. Whether the life like beneath, अगर जमीन में बर्फ की तह के नीचे कोई जिंदगी मौजूद है कहीं पर, तो बिलीव के वो बैक्टीरिया विल बी देयर. समंदर की तहों में लाइफ मौजूद है तो बैक्टीरिया होएगा. माउंटेन्स की चोटियों पे अगर कहीं पर लाइफ मौजूद है, लिमिट्स के ऊपर भी अगर कहीं पर लाइफ मौजूद है, that will be like the bacteria. So that special thing about all the multicellular organisms, they are eukaryotic. And we can see the cells, they are different from each other based on their size, shape, and structures. In general, the prokaryotic cells are small, the eukaryotic cells are like large. If you want to compare the size of different cells, just think about this is the tip of a common pin. It contains large number of cells. These are the small bacteria present on the tip of a common pin. You can see. Zoom in further and zoom in further, and that is how you can see that what is the general comparison of what is the perspective of the cell size. The cells are that much smaller. A tip of the common pin contains large number of cells.